everyone. Thanks so much for joining me for this week's episode of When I Grow Up. On today's episode, it's my pleasure and honor to welcome my guest, Arah Kang. Hey, Arah, how are you?
Good. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Uh, sorry, I'm like.
Are you nervous?
Yeah, kind of.
Why? No. Don't be nervous.
I
It
haven't
really
done a
is.
recording in a while, so.
No. But really, it's just like a conversation,
Okay.
chat between friends. Me and Arah, we met like under really interesting circumstances. I feel like kind of
Right.
randomly. For
Yeah, through a mutual friend.
yeah. Like, you guys know if you've been listening to the podcast for a little while, my friend and I did an episode at a place called Space Crew. It's like oh my gosh, I just forgot the
It's
word.
like a co-working space for like
Co-working
creative,
space.
right? Mhm.
And then the person that kind of owns and runs Space Crew is our mutual friend. And then we got to sit down and chat just for a moment for like dinner. And then after that, she's been so busy.
I feel like you've been busy with the podcast too, so.
Well, okay, I'll admit, just life just happened.
Right.
But I was just telling Arah right before we started recording that it's been cool for me to like watch from a distance on social media, kind of like, yeah, things kind of escalate in your career, right?
Mhm.
And like I don't know like the journey for you, and I'm excited to hear about it today. But for me, from where I sit, it was kind of like, oh my gosh, all of a sudden you're doing all these amazing projects and just producing such amazing work, Arah. Oh, by the way, Ara's an artist. Sorry, I didn't say that.
Like, what
She's
she
an
got to?
artist.
What projects?
Yes, but I will let you talk more about it. So, Arah, what is it that you do? Like, how would you define it?
I guess officially on paper, I identify as a multimedia creative director, where I kind of take on a variety of different projects with clients that kind of oversees creative direction and just like produce products or events. But personally, I like to identify as a muralist.
Okay, yeah. I was telling my husband David too. He always asks me, like, I put people's names on my calendar, like our shared
Uh-huh.
calendar, and he's like, "Okay, so who is this girl that you're meeting tonight?" And I was like, "Well, she does a lot of murals." Right? Like,
Mhm.
and then he's like, "Oh, that's really cool." But I have a lot of questions because
Mhm.
um first of all, I feel like murals like are probably, I would imagine, a really big like feat, like very big
It's a
conquest,
big
because like it's
production for
just
sure.
right, like
Mhm.
something large to take on.
Mhm.
Me myself, I'm not artistic in that way, like drawing and painting.
Mhm.
So like, a small scale is very daunting for me. I can't
Mhm.
imagine the kind of prep that goes into a large scale mural. So,
Mhm.
for those of you that don't know, those of us that don't know, Arah, like how, like a muralist, like what does that mean? Yeah, what does that mean?
Yeah. It's kind of like a niche, like part of like the art industry, I would say, where a lot of people, I don't think anyone is just starts off as a muralist. You obviously it's like start on like a smaller scale, whether you're doing like just like regular paintings, like design graphics. It's a really like something where you've worked on art for a bit and you want to take it to a bigger scale and use like a different medium. Essentially, your canvas just changes and your like dimension changes. So there's a lot of different steps to it, but I would say that if you are creative, it does become highly accessible. Like it is like a path that people creative can take. I like it's a very communal type of art, which I really appreciate.
Oh, I love that. Like communal art is really cool. Like I feel
Mm-hmm.
like I've only had Nicole King was on.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And even her like vocabulary and like vibe, like I felt like, oh, amongst artists, I thought there would be like more competition, but it seems as though it's a really like tight, loving, helpful community of people.
Yeah, so I actually worked with Nicole on a couple of projects, and she's a gem. I think that's what's unique about the Atlanta creative community. It's not cutthroat, it's not pretentious, it's not competitive. I feel like everyone is competitive in like, kind of pushing themselves,
Mhm.
but everyone is always looking out for each other. And like, everyone's asking to work on like, their mural or a project with them. Everyone's always like outsourcing to each other, like, making sure everyone has a good opportunity, everyone is like, compensated properly. And people are so down to just like teach and like just have you just like learn. So I think that's like really unique about the Atlanta creative space.
That's so great. So okay, as a muralist, how does
Yes.
one get hired or contracted to even do a mural?
It's very word of mouth. Because
Oh.
I think the concept of like muraling isn't like something people like immediately think of. Like the concept of just like murals. And so like some people will just start like, Googling or just like reaching out to local artists that they know. And from there, people will be like, oh yeah, this person has done murals or this person has experience with murals. There we have like a pretty like, kind of cut out community of muralists. And
Okay.
so if even the most experienced ones like, are like really booked, then like, they'll start like outsourcing to other muralists or like passing the project on to other folks as well. And so that's how sometimes work comes in. Or some people will just see your art at like, as they pass by and they
Uh-huh.
get curious and they look into it, and then that's how they reach out to you and be like, hey, can you do this like, for my building or wherever they want a mural at.
Amazing. Okay. So like okay, you know how like there are murals like, say like downtown Duluth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Like who pays the person to do that?
It really varies. Sometimes it can definitely be like a city run project where the city has like a separate funding or grant that
Oh.
like pays the artist to come out there, do the design, and kind of like hash that out. Sometimes there are organizations like there's one called Living Walls, and
Mhm.
they predominantly just do murals, and so they'll outsource a specific artist. They set up like, the contracts and everything, like the paint and the equipment and everything, and then just have it set up. And so they handle all the transactions. It really varies. No, or
Okay.
it can just be the independent contractor from like the building owner itself. So
Oh, interesting. So I saw
mm,
that you worked on something at Disney Springs.
yes.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah. No, it was like one of the best experiences I had with muraling. Like I mean, like you said, like how you saw everything to progress so quickly. Literally everything just like came to me so quickly. It was kind of primarily through the book that I like, published with a bunch of other Atlanta creatives for
Oh, that's
Nicole and a
right.
couple other folks who are on that book, even Edward's son. And then from there, I worked with an artist. Her name is Leia Apakayan, and she used to intern at Disney. And so someone she knew there became a creative director at
Mhm.
Walt Disney like Imagineering, and so there we landed like a project where they were doing a Disney Springs like art walk, where they wanted to just like cover all the blank walls in Disney Springs with art. So there was like international artists like from Brazil, some local from Florida, and we were the first from Atlanta to go paint.
Wow. I don't know. I just got the
Yeah.
chills for some reason.
Yeah. And it was so cool because like it was just to highlight like diversity and inclusion, people to tell their stories. So we like, did like a very kind of like create your own dreams, like a fun take. And she since Alea is Filipino, like, we did some like, aspects of like her culture,
Mm.
and it was like such a cool experience where I guess at Disney, like if you're doing something and people are watching, you're like on stage or live. And
Mm,
so
yeah.
we saw a lot of kids who they didn't want to like, do the regular like Disney stuff. They were just like coming over and like, just like intensely watching us,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Oh, mom, dad, are they painting like for real, for real?" Like, and it was just such a cool experience where in my head I was like, "Wow, I really wish I like have witnessed like, a muralist just painting growing up." Then I could have thought, I was like, "Oh, this is something I could do in the future." And it was just so cool being able to tell kids like, it's like, yeah, you can definitely do that. And like there's a lot of adults like, who they're like, oh yeah, I got like a MFA back in the day, like no, but I just never really used it. Like no, I really want to like get back into painting and stuff. So just seeing that inspiration was like amazing.
Yeah, no, I'm getting
So
emotional. Can you see that I'm getting
I was like
emotional?
watching, I was like,
Oh
oh,
my
you're getting
gosh, like I mean, I think okay, if I'm honest, if anything, just like with kids, I think of my own children,
mhm,
but it just what you said really hits a chord, right? It's like,
mhm,
yeah, like the opportunities that you don't realize you missed out on until you're like
mhm,
in it. And I
right,
think there's something to it, like what you just said, like kids watching. I mean, how magic everything's magical at Disney anyways. And then like
mhm,
how
right,
magical is it to watch someone and then being able to probably see this finished product too
mhm,
afterwards. Even
mhm,
like one thought that came to mind, this is so random, Ara, but so tomorrow there's like a Winnie the Pooh play at my son's school, okay? And I was on the fence like, "Oh,
uh-huh,
should we go? I don't know. Like
mhm,
maybe it's a waste of time." And
mhm,
but then like something in me was like, but what if we go to this play and like Zoe or even Eli, like my 3-year-old, I feel like my
mhm,
3-year-old would be the more dramatic one, but but like what if they're like, "Hey, I want to give acting a try." And
mhm,
it just dawned on me, right? Like it's not that my parents didn't want to take me to these things. It's just like, it was a different time. They worked
mhm,
full time. They didn't
right,
have the opportunities to be able to do that. And what you just said, just like like affirmed, so we're going tomorrow. But like
mhm,
but like it just affirmed like what my thought process was too. Is like, yeah, like even though I don't think it matters,
mhm.
like at a
The
younger
small
age.
interactions that you never really like thought about too deeply. Yeah, like so it kind of makes me think that it's again, that's kind of what inspires me. It's like those type of interactions where not only am I inspiring kids to kind of like show, especially because like in the Asian American community too, it's not like like pushed upon where people are like yeah like become a creative, right? Because
Right.
it's like that's how immigrant parents are, but just being able to like show kids like as like an Asian American female that I'm like out here like doing that, like I think it inspired a lot of like kids, but also I noticed with a lot of parents or people like around like my age that I feel like filling in a void that was like missing,
Mm.
kind of like healing. And so I guess I'm healing my inner child as I'm doing this, as like so I'm like hoping that it has the same effect to other people. I think one of the biggest projects that I've like worked on like with another Asian American artist, Kilamari. We did an 80-foot mural in Midtown in Atlanta. Yeah, so it was like it was really big, and it was for Asian Heritage Month with Pandora, and
Oh,
so
I remember this one. Yes, that was
yes,
so
yes,
good. Yes.
and then so it's like we got to incorporate like all different like Asian just cultures. So it's just like mixed into like one girl listening to music,
Yes,
and then
yes.
like the QR code will lead you to like an Asian American playlist. And I was like, this is so cool. Like kids like will see this and be like, hey, that's me. I can finally relate to something, right? Especially because
Mm,
like I didn't have that like representation and visibility growing up. So I thought that was like big. So it's like
yeah.
a lot of these projects I feel like is bigger than me, and I feel like it's like there's this extra sense of responsibility with muralists because you're kind of incorporating yourself, your art, into people's daily lives, whether they like it or not, right? And so I think everything has to be made with like really good intention. And so I'm
Mm.
very like selective with like different works that I work on. A lot of them are like diversity and inclusion projects, most of
That's
them.
awesome. That's really cool. So, like, when you did that 80-foot one in Midtown, okay, I'm so
Hmm.
sorry if this is a really dumb question, but like, so were you like on a lift or something?
Yeah, we were on a boom lift, and it's just like this little, like creaky little box, like in a metal box, and they were just there painting. I'm an adrenaline junkie, so like that was no problem for me.
Oh my gosh. No, because it was on that big, like, when you're coming down 85 North,
Yes. Mhm.
and it's like so high.
Mhm. Yeah.
What's funny? It's like I think I saw it on your social media and then I saw it in person and I
Uh huh.
thought, I think this is the one she did. And then I
Mhm.
second guessed myself because I was like, "Is it? Like, this is a really big deal, I
Really
feel like."
big. That was my second
That's
mural.
crazy. That is so
Yeah.
crazy. Man, congratulations, truly are. I feel like, it
Mhm.
must feel so great to be acknowledged for, like the giftings that you have too, like by other
Mhm.
artists and like, hey, like, can you
Yeah,
come help me out?
I'm
Like,
so blessed. Like, I literally
yeah.
reached out and I was just like, "Hey, is this something like I could learn?" Because like, I like entrusted them to work on art for the book, and then so I was just like, "Hey,
Mm.
like, I just wanted to like tap into each artist like further than just like keeping it to just like one project." And Mario was just like, "Yeah, just come out to this like mural." And then usually it's like I thought like I would just be kind of like observing and stuff.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
No, everything was like super hands on, and he was a professor before, and
Oh,
so like he was
wow.
such a like phenomenal professor on how to like spray paint, how to like just like work the logistics of murals and everything. He just like taught me everything I know,
That's
and so
amazing.
yeah, but then I was like, oh, maybe it's just him, but like literally everyone is like that
Oh,
within the
wow.
community, and so it's like now my current mission right now is just like actually paying it forward and allowing like newer artists who aren't familiar with how to do like murals because there's like specific steps and like how to like work it out. Yeah, so it's like me paying it forward and teaching them the ways.
Okay, so then speaking of which, I was gonna ask you, could
Mhm.
you possibly take me from like to the when you're commissioned for a mural, like
Mhm.
from start to finish, what does that look like for you as far as pre-planning and then executing and
Mhm.
stuff?
Honestly, painting is always going to be easiest part. That's what we always joke about. It's like painting, like that's no brainer. But like from the beginning, it's like usually it's a lot of explanation because a lot of people aren't familiar with like how like the logistics of murals. Like it's just like a lot of steps, a lot of equipment involved, just a lot of things to like work out. And so like that period of working out the project and like setting down the logistics is like kind of a longer period than the actual painting part.
Okay.
And so they'll reach out. Some is like I have to kind of scope out the building or like what I'm painting on. So it's like is the surface flat? Is it textured? Is like are we working with a brick wall? Is it indoors? Is it outdoors? Usually with spray paint, it's like it's a much faster and easier job, but it'll only last for 5 to 6 years before you need a touch up. For latex paint, it'll last you about 10 years or so. But obviously, it takes a lot longer to do like hand paint and everything. And some buildings like a ladder won't cut it, so you might need to rent out like a lift to kind
Oh
of work that
yeah.
out. And so it's like all these like different logistics to think about, and it's like, do we have a parking permit? Do we have access to the building? All these type of different things. And say if like I'm outsourcing different artists, like are they like okay with that? And also just getting the design down, right?
Right.
And like making sure they like the different like designs or if it's like a lot of companies sometimes will do just their logo. So like it really varies. It's
Mm.
like, do I need to design something extra, or am I just like recreating a design that is like pre-exists, but just for me to blow it up on a larger scale. So all these
Mm.
like, little small details, and then you just like do the whole paint job. And then
How does one again, sorry this is so dumb. Like
no,
like
not at all.
um like measure like how do you blow things up? Like how do you get it
Yeah, yeah, that's a
bigger? Like
great
I don't
question. Everyone. So there are many methods to go about it. So some people will like wait until nighttime and then they'll just project the image onto the wall and trace it.
Oh my
But
gosh.
for me, it's like I don't usually like waiting around like nighttime,
Yeah, yeah.
especially like in Atlanta and stuff. And so it's like there's a method called the grid system where you just draw different shapes and then like you take a picture of that and then you overlay like your design over it so you can kind of get an estimate of like where things are going to be and you just kind of draw like as you go as you're watching, and so
Gotcha,
you don't have to
gotcha.
do like the tracing as much. So it gives you either way to blow it up. Personally, it's like I actually like working on like larger scale murals because like instead of smaller canvases, it's just I don't know. It seems easier. In my head, it just seems
Mm.
easier. But
Interesting.
yeah.
Is muraling like very like forgiving though? Like if you kind of mess up a little or
Even with the Pandora wall, there's like certain stuff that was kind of patchy, and I was like, I don't think they're gonna see it from the highway. So as long as you got the main part that's covered, I was like, oh, I think this is pretty
yeah.
solid. So it's like it's pretty forgiving in that aspect, right? If it's like something that where people are kind of like interacting like
Right.
daily, like there's was shipping container that I painted, like that obviously took more details because like people are there like every day, and so yeah, it really varies, but most of the time it's like forgiving. Like you can always just like kind of go back and like
Mm.
repaint things. So
Okay, okay. Oh man, so fascinating. So, I mean,
yeah.
I have to ask now, like, how have you always been an artist? Like, can you take me back, like, even maybe to your childhood? Is this something you've always
Yeah.
done?
Honestly, yes. My earliest memories as a kid was when you're young, you kind of think that like your parents are like superheroes. They're capable of everything, and you don't know like what you're capable of, right? And then so in my head, I was like, I wasn't really allowed to like draw something, right? It was just like kind of intimidating. And then so I asked my dad to draw me a dog, right? And then he tried his best, and I was not satisfied. I was like, what is this? And then so I think I took it into my own hands, and then I realized that like I enjoyed like doing art.
Oh,
So that was like that
wow.
moment. And then so I've always done art like growing up. I used to like compete a lot in different like just school art programs, but like art has always been like a pretty integral piece of my life, I would say, because like even with like school projects and stuff, I would be that kid who always like goes above and beyond to like make it as artsy as possible to get
Mm.
extra points, and yeah, it's like during college, I really wanted to go to art school, but I kind of went down the more traditional path. I ended up like going to a liberal arts school studying government legal studies. I thought I was gonna be a lawyer. And even like in college too, I remember where I got into a lot of kind of like Asian American, just like racial like activism, social like activism, and I kind of want to put like a creative like twist to it, and
Mhm.
so there was a project that I led, which ended up going viral very unexpectedly. It was like hashtag this is 2016, and so I got a lot of like the Asian American students to take a picture with like just like a whiteboard and just kind of write like really stereotypical things that like in microaggressions that we've heard. And then I just kind of made it like a gallery where people would just like we just posted it in like a very public space, and it kind of opened like dialogue for people to be like, oh, I didn't realize like that was kind of like that had like that was offensive, or like it just opened like more conversation, which was like the whole point of it.
Wow.
We just posted on Facebook, and it kind of blew up like far more
Yeah.
than I like anticipated. And so there was like projects like that, and then yeah, I've just had a couple other galleries like pertaining to that. And I've like when I also worked with Asian Americans Advancing Justice, I interned with them like during college, and they like quickly realized that I do art, and so they would like ask me to create posters or like just different things for different campaigns. And so yeah, it was just like a lot of this art, just kind of like sprinkled here and there, but it was never like a full on like concentration.
I see.
And
So
mhm,
just other opportunities in what you are already doing allowed you to use your creative side and people acknowledge that. And so you didn't
mhm.
go to art school then.
I did not. I took like art lessons maybe like throughout like elementary school, like
Uh-huh.
middle school. So it's like I do have like kind of like basics, but it's like
Uh-huh.
and
Uh-huh.
nothing really like expanded like outside of that. So it's like
Okay.
no formal schooling.
That's amazing. I mean, for me it's just well, one, I know that I mean, school in itself is just challenging, but I do know that art
Hmm.
school is like can be very challenging and intimidating, even like
Oh, a hundred
applying
percent.
and stuff. Um,
Mhm.
but like, and I also know that they do give you the skills that you need to prepare for
Mhm.
whatever future career that you might have. I would
Mhm.
imagine as a muralist, so you do have to hone your skills. Like, how did you, like, I mean, I guess you learn from other artists.
Mhm. Kind yeah. This was like like I also was very intimidated before getting into all of this. I was like, do I kind of have the right to do this when other people have been going to like
Yes.
school, getting like all their kind of like I was like, oh, and so because like I felt like everything like even with all these different softwares, like I was just like teaching myself how to like work operate all of these, and so I was like, is this cheating? Like, and
No.
it made me feel better when I talked to a lot of these artists where they're like, yeah, like, for some people, like, who need structure, like, the school's great where they teach you certain tools, but they're like, I don't think it's 100% necessary. It's like, because like school won't teach you how to create your own style because they're just
Mm.
like kind of teaching you how to, like, do things like, a certain way. And obviously professors have their own preferences and whatnot, but they're like, yeah, it's really on you to create your own style and kind of experiment with that. And yeah, so it's just like through them, I just got like more training and like I get pulled into a lot of like projects, and so I think like it's just like more experience and learning as I'm going. So it's like that is like each project is like kind of like me honing things, but also I'm very like perfectionist, so I want to make sure like I'm giving like quality and obviously too.
Yeah,
So
I'm not shocked about that. It doesn't shock me. No, I mean, for me, honestly, it's really encouraging to hear that, like that you don't have a, typical kind of path that you took as an artist.
Mhm.
Because, it just for me feels like you ended up where you're supposed to be no matter what path you took, right? Like,
Mhm.
and I mean, I think again, I think about my own kids, even about their own schooling. My husband and I, we talk all the time about like college versus not going, and i'm
Mhm.
i'm like, well,
Mhm.
they should go, and then David's like, why? Like, like
Mhm.
meaning like
Yeah.
meaning like for you for example, like I think with the resources that we're given today in this day and age, like many people can learn to do anything, right? Like,
Mhm.
and
Right.
whether it's art or something, another skill, I'm just like, yeah, like, well, I mean, a lot of it's because you're really smart, Ara, I think.
Oh,
But but
yeah.
like but like I think if applied well, and then
Mm,
on top of that, you find what you love and you're
right.
passionate about, like,
Mhm.
yeah, like sky's the limit. Like you can be a muralist. That's so crazy.
Right. I like 100% believe where it's just like college, like, it's not necessary, right? Where it's just like, it's not for everyone. Like, everyone has such different like learning habits and like, behavior that like, it's really college is like, even if you go, it's really what you make of it. If you don't make like,
Yes.
anything of it, then it's just like kind of a waste essentially. But it's like, if you make the most of it, then like, you're bound to get like kind of better opportunities.
Right, right.
For me, I think like for me, I like truly believe it's like if it's meant for you, like for you, it's really meant for you, and like if things don't work out, like there's a reason behind it, right?
Mhm.
And just going to college made me realize that I have like good skills in like program and like project management, and so I think a lot of these projects is like a lot of the reason why a lot of artists want to work with me is because I keep everyone very organized.
Organized, yeah.
Yeah, and because like it's always so crazy for like artists because like there's no like rigid structure or like schedule, and so just like keeping them like organized and just like on top of things like really helps a lot of artists in their projects, and so that's something I've been kind of noticing that like I have kind of like my strength in, and
Yeah,
so
yeah, for sure.
I think college definitely helped a lot in
Yeah,
that.
I didn't say don't go to college, people. That's not what I
Yeah.
said. I
On the
I'm just
record.
saying. I'm
Y'all
just
stay in
saying.
school.
Yeah.
Please.
Ara went to like want to be a lawyer, okay? It's not but uh what was I gonna, oh, yes, but absolutely. I think definitely there are skills to be learned everywhere. Ara, so like I have to ask, is there something that you do not like about being like your job or a muralist, or what are some challenges that you faced?
I know a lot of people complain about like working like the 9 to 5, which I definitely did when I was working as a consultant. But when you become like a full time art like creative, like you're working 24 hours.
Oh.
Whereas like you like you like expect to work on weekends or expect to like work like at odd hours sometimes. Each project is just like so different, and like
Mhm.
the deliverables with it. But yeah, I would say that's like the only like hard part. But I guess like maybe stuff that I don't necessarily like is necessary, but I don't like is like admin type of work. Like so like making like getting all the contract and all stuff out of the way, like being able to like negotiate, um, updating your like your website or portfolio from like time to time, making sure that's all good. Yeah, just like that type of stuff. But
Yeah.
I think like the art itself just kind of balances it out,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
I think it's like the best feeling, just like being able to just like paint, right, and get paid to paint, right? And so that's always like a great feeling, and also just like working with other folks too. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Wait, so are you a full-time, like you're
Mhm.
full-time doing this now?
Mhm. Yeah.
How
Mhm.
wonderful. I mean, I know you said it's hard, but like I know still,
Mhm.
I'm sure it's so great.
It's
Uh,
it's definitely like a lot of work.
yeah.
So it's like for people who like really want to do this, like just be prepared to like work your ass off. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah, and it's like if you like need to make ends meet in other ways, like that is also fine too, because like a lot of like creatives like it takes time to build up to like where you want to go eventually, and
Sure.
building up like I guess like a reputation and building your brand, like all those like necessary steps. So it's like first it'll be very slow, and then you'll build up momentum over time.
Hmm.
So
So was there anything else that you wanted to share about like your career or um I don't know, something I missed? I was
um
gonna ask you for advice, but I do that at the end. But if
mhm.
anything in between that where you feel like you wanted to talk about as an artist.
mm, I would just tell people to not be afraid to kind of like network and reach out to folks, right? And I feel like the best artists usually are like the most humble artists.
Mm,
And I've had a pleasure of like working with like a wide variety of different artists, but the ones that I've like kept close, like we're all like we understand how hard like just like the work can be, and we understand that like we respect and honor everyone's journey is like very different. Um, I definitely stay in my lane, and also just like because like I didn't like get any like formal like training in art and whatnot, that I make it a big point to definitely let people know that like how grateful I am to like
mm,
have all these opportunities. This was not like from like me going off and doing my own thing. It took a village to get to this point, and it's still growing, right?
mm,
And so I want to be able to just like pay it forward for like even the community, even for like young creatives, like especially in the Asian community. It's like I want to like kind of like set the bar where it's just like we're not stuck in like the starving artist mentality anymore. Like it's like you can like be successful, right?
mm,
As long as like you're making the right decisions, like you're kind of also kind of educating yourself in the like the business aspect of like all of this, and making good decisions, like getting mentorship and not being afraid to ask for help. I think that's very huge. um and if you do get burnt out, which is really real, because like you're constantly using your brain for like to get your creative juices flowing, it's okay to take a break. Because I feel like social
ah,
media, and I kind of hate like how now we're all super dependent on social media to kind of push out our branding and like our content. It inevitably like Instagram has just become everyone's portfolio.
mm,
Where people don't really look into other people's websites anymore. Like Instagram just like kind of lays it all there for you, and it's easier to like connect people. Um, I say it's okay to take a break, right, from social media, because you see other people constantly like churning out like art pieces or like this that, and like it can get overwhelming for a lot of creative folks. And so I think it's really important to just like not compare like
mm,
yourself to like other folks, and just like try your best to kind of like stay focused on what you're trying to build, and where like where you're trying to grow.
Yeah, no, that's really good. That last piece, I mean, all of it was really good, but that last piece, I think,
Mhm.
is like a truth bomb, kind of like.
Yeah.
No, because like not
Mhm.
honestly, not just artists, like just people in
People in
general,
general,
right?
social
Like
media. Mhm.
just like everyone need to take a step back.
Mhm. No, 100%. And like, it's easy to get sucked up into it, right? And like kind
Absolutely.
of like make it feel like it's a reflection of yourself, but it's really not. And it's like you have to realize that everyone just wants to put their best image and best for like foot forward out on social media, but not many people will show like the hard, the ugly, like no side of like what's going on with life. And
Yeah.
so it's not to get like sucked up into that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So good. I appreciate you even saying about the like starving artist mentality. It did
Hmm.
remind me though to I wanted to ask you, like, are your parents like cool? Like do they support you in being an artist, or what's that like?
Ultimately, I feel like that's such like a hard question because like reaction's so different when you see the art itself, right? It's always like
Right.
whoa, right? But
Right.
then like the I think what makes like immigrant parents happy is like seeing you like stable, right? So it's hard to explain like freelance or like this type of like work when work always won't be like consistent, right? Projects won't be coming in every week. Sometimes like you'll have this like a cluster of like projects back to back, and sometimes like you'll have a couple weeks off where it's like you're kind of like recuperating, and so it's kind of like hard like for them to kind of grasp. And so it'd be nice to have like more examples around us, right? To show
Mm,
that like this lifestyle is actually doable. Like it can. I think it's like hard when you're stuck with the term stable because it's so subjective, right?
mm,
And yeah, it's just it's kind of like rigid where like so it works for some people, it might not work for other folks.
mhm, mhm.
But to show like I'm hoping that like that our happiness and our passion and like our work will speak for itself, right? So
Mm.
to the point that we will like they will no longer be worried,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And they will feel that like like their work and stuff like it's like yeah, it was worth it for like my kid to be happy, for my kid to like for like this result, like.
right,
So
right.
that's like my like hope. So like a lot of these projects I definitely feel like it's kind of bigger than like
Yeah,
me, like
yeah.
and so that's just like and there's other mentors too who've like I've worked with like a Korean mentor, Jennifer Chung, and she's like always just talked about like yeah, like they are gonna always have a hard time understanding, right?
Yeah,
Like that you just have to kind of push through and like prove that like no, this is working, like
right.
there are ways around it. And even if you do need to take a step back, if you need to like dip into like other things and come back to it, like that's fine.
Yeah.
Everyone's path is like so different, but as long as you're able to kind of like stick with it, I think that's like really important.
Yeah, yeah.
So
No, I like just kind of power through sometimes.
hmm
Um,
yeah, it
man,
won't be
this
pretty. It's gonna be a hard journey. Like
yeah,
I can't
sacrifices
speak for
are
everyone's
made.
like parents, but yeah, it's still like surreal and rewarding though. At the end of it, like when you're actually like doing it, like it's just like an unexplainable feeling where it's just like wow, like I'm living my wildest dream, you
Oh, I
know.
love it. I love it so much.
Yeah.
So great.
So,
Well, Ara, since you mentioned mentorship,
mhm,
not to put you on the spot, but I always do ask my guests if you would be open to people reaching out to you if they had questions or just really enjoyed this conversation between you and I.
mhm.
Yeah, would you be okay with me connecting you with them?
Oh, of course. Like anything like related to muraling, or if people are like curious about how to get into it, like I'm 100% like open for conversation. So.
Awesome. Well, guys, don't be afraid to reach out. Just like she said, it's really important to network. Don't be shy. If you have questions for Ara, please DM me on social media, or you can email me at podcastwigu@gmail.com. Ara, thank you so much for your time tonight. I really appreciate it. I know your life is so crazy, but it truly was my honor. So thank you.
Thank you for having me here.
Of course. Until next time, guys. Bye.